I'm Shelby Vandeberghe, and today I'm going to be assessing the elbow and the proximal and distal radial ulnar joints. First, I'll start by doing active pronation of the proximal and distal radial ulnar joints. There are a few ways to do this, but the one that I found to be the most reliable is what I'll show you. So I'll have the patient seated, feet flat on the floor, elbow in 90 degrees of flexion. To stabilize, I'll have her humerus pressed firmly against her trunk so she's not externally or internally rotating from her shoulder. For pronation, I'll have the goniometer placed on the outside of the wrist. Your axis will be in line with your ulnar styloid process. Your stationary will be perpendicular to the floor, and your movable will be parallel with the distal forearm. So if I could have you actively pronate for me. And I got 80 degrees, which is normal because anywhere from 80 to 90 degrees is normal. So for supination, it's going to be the same exact landmark, same stabilization method, but this time I'm going to be moving my goniometer to the inside of the wrist. So, ulnar styloid process in line with that. So if I could have you supinate for me. And again, I got 81 degrees, so anywhere from 80 to 90 degrees is considered normal for supination. I'll be doing manual muscle testing for gross supination. I'll have the patient in a supine position. The elbow will be in 90 degrees of flexion. One hand will be on the humerus to stabilize. The other hand will be on the distal forearm in a supinated position. I will be trying to place the patient in a pronated position, but I'm going to make sure not to wring the skin. So if you could hold this position for 3 to 5 seconds while I push against resistance, okay? Hold, 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 hold. And I'll give the patient a 5 out of 5 because they were able to hold the test position with max resistance for 3 to 5 seconds. I'll be doing manual muscle testing for gross pronation. The patient will be in supine. The elbow will be in 90 degrees of flexion. I'll stabilize the humerus. The patient will be in a pronated position. I'll stabilize on the distal forearm, trying to place them into supination, but making sure not to wring the skin. So if you could just hold this position against my resistance for 3 to 5 seconds. So hold, 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 hold. I'll score the patient a 5 out of 5 because they were able to maintain the test position against maximal resistance for 3 to 5 seconds. I'll be assessing triceps brachii muscle length. The patient will be in supine against the edge of the bed, so I'm not limiting their range of motion. Earlier, I found that the patient's elbow flexion was 155 degrees. Now to assess the triceps brachii, I'll need to lengthen the muscle over both joints that it crosses. To do so, I will have the patient be in full elbow flexion, then I'll place them into full shoulder flexion, and from here, I will measure the patient's elbow flexion in this position. Axis being the lateral epicondyle, stationary being towards the acromion, and movable being in line with the radial styloid process. And I got 153 degrees. With only a 2-degree difference, I will say that the triceps brachii is unimpaired and within normal limits.